Welcome to the Restoring Our Cities podcast. My name is Jobin. We are super excited to continue our leadership series with a very special guest. Renji Bijoy is the CEO and founder of Immersed VR, which is a great new startup company that is changing the way we work. And it's super encouraging to see what he's doing in our community and really improving the lives of everyone in the workforce. And so we're encouraged by this conversation, and we really hope you glean some really great leadership lessons in taking risks and even just surrounding yourselves with the right people. And Renji is a really great testament of that. So I really hope you enjoy this conversation. As always, if you haven't already, please subscribe to the Restoring Our Cities podcast. We are streaming on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and you can watch the video version of this episode on YouTube as well. So we appreciate you listening, and we hope you enjoy this episode. All right, welcome everyone to the Restoring Our City podcast. My name's Jobin. We're super excited to jump on this episode with a very special guest, Renji Bijoy, who's the CEO of Immersed VR and was recently named Forbes 30 under 30. Super excited.
Yeah.
Renji, how are you doing, man?
Yeah, doing good, man. Our team, like I said, our team is super excited about the Forbes 30 under 30 thing. It's pretty mind blowing, but yeah, we're excited. It's just a great opportunity for our team to just continue growing. So it's good. Yeah.
Yeah, we're super excited to have you on. And with our podcast, we've actually been in this leadership series. We've been connecting with people in our community who are leaders in their own right and doing some great, encouraging work. And so we're super excited for what you're doing and obviously all the things that you're going to do in the future. And so we just kind of wanted to get to know you. And for our listeners who isn't really familiar with you, Renji, tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, and a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. So my parents moved from India to New York. Malayali kid. I don't know if whoever's listening, you probably know what that means. But so born in New York, lived there until I was about 8. Our parents had actually moved us out of New York because just how rough it was for them. They didn't, my parents weren't doctors or lawyers or anything. They tried to make ends meet. It was definitely hard. We ended up moving to the suburbs of Atlanta just because way cheaper prices. A lot of Indians started moving from New York out of down to Atlanta just because cheaper houses. You can get a 5-bedroom home for like $200K, and so and lots of land. And so they thought I think the reason why they moved to New York is because they just didn't really know anything else. And so grew up most of my childhood from 8 until college in the suburbs of Atlanta, then moved into the city of Atlanta for college, went to Emory for undergrad in computer science. It's funny, I was actually pre-med because of my parents, and then math and computer science for myself because I knew I loved math and I learned about coding in college. And so I finished the pre-med track. I took my MCATs, applied to med schools, interviewed at med schools. And as I started hearing back, before I started hearing back, I wanted to start working as a coder just because, it was like a 9-month process to hear back. And I loved my job. And I was just like, dude,
really?
I am not going to med school. So whenever I got the letters back from med schools, I threw them all in the trash, and my parents were so angry at me, man. Wow. They're like, Porta, we brought you to this country for to make you a doctor or whatever, and they were extremely upset because when I told them about me being a coder and loving software and stuff, they're like, everyone's in IT, I'm like,
right.
This is not, and they're thinking customer support IT, and I'm like, I'm building software, it's different. And they ultimately to be real, there was like a period, like sort of a falling out with my parents. Growing up, I didn't want to kind of just fall into the status quo. I was a very, I questioned everything. Fun fact, I graduated high school with a 2.6 GPA. I didn't give a crap about homework. I did really well on my SATs, but I was just a very lazy kid. So I wasn't stupid. I was just lazy. And so I played Halo, 8 hours a day and wrestled for whatever. And so ultimately, my entire life, I kind of questioned everything. I didn't want to do things just because everyone else was. And honestly, if someone just gave me a good reason as to why college credit mattered, then I probably would have done it. I had no one to actually tell me about that stuff. So anyways, that being said, started working as a software engineer, and I loved my job, and every job I'd been at, I felt like I kind of this sounds bad. I had 7 different software engineering jobs within 2 years, mainly because every job I'd sort of gotten to, I felt like I figured out the role really, really well, and I wanted to do more work. I wouldn't ask for more money. I just wanted more responsibilities. And they'd be like, oh, well, we hired you for this position, and we do yearly reviews. I'm like, yearly? I might not be alive next year. Like, I don't know. Like, I want to keep moving fast. And so I'd have a recruiter reach out and promise me the world, saying, "Oh, this next job is gonna be way better. They never compartmentalize you. You're gonna love it there." And so I'd interview at the next job, and I'd tell them, "Hey, my last employer compartmentalized me like crazy. Is that what you guys do?" Like, "No, you want more work? We'll just give you more work." But then, lo and behold, 2-3 months later, I feel like I'm doing a good job, and it's just repetitive. I'm like, "Hey, give me more work," and like, "Oh, we don't really have much to delegate to you," and then the next job again. So it's kind of that cycle for 2 years straight. And so I guess 2 years out of undergrad, I went from an entry level engineer to a lead architect, and it was really odd because I was I guess 23-year-old kid at that time, or I guess 21 is when I graduated. So 23, I was a lead architect. I was leading people who, I mean, to be real, like these are much older men and women who in their 50s, some getting close to 60, and they would always kind of sun me all the time, like, "Oh, I have kids older than you," and stuff. And I'm like, well, I mean, who's in the position? Like, who's the one like leading the ship? And so I think it definitely was odd for me in corporate America. I think that I don't know, it something felt off. It was cool to be able to collect a nice check, and I was living with dudes, 10 dudes in a house, and paying $169 for rent, and so mad cheap, saving a lot of money. And I was like, okay, well, corporate America, I guess I just sort of got to a point of just being pretty tired and almost fed up with sort of the corporate culture and sort of the bureaucracy and just the politics. And I'm like, man, this is not a meritocracy at all. I was not being, it was funny. At my last job, I was essentially building this product for CNN. It's like a time waster app. And it was called greatbigstory.com. And so it was like CNN's millennial, or like this effort towards trying to attract millennials, because most people who watch CNN are on average 45 years old and older. And they wanted me and my team to build greatbigstory.com. And it actually did really well. Within 2 months, we growth hacked it to about 3 million followers. And it was a big hit, and they re-upped the contract, like another $10 million contract. But the CEO of that contracting company was like, "Yeah, man, great job, Renji. Here's a $50 Kindle." I was just like, it was so odd. So I was like, all right, I'm just going to go build my own thing, man. Like, I guess it was just like event after event after event where I realized I guess I just wasn't sort of content with building time waster apps and things like that. Everything I wanted to build and work on, I wanted it to have purpose. And so, I mean, especially if I'm spending over half my waking hours doing something, I want it to be something that's extremely meaningful and that I'm satisfied with the work. And so I jumped ship and pursued a PhD at Georgia Tech in computer vision and machine learning, because the web world was kind of, I felt like it hit somewhat of a ceiling, and I wanted to move into AI stuff, because if you could build like a robot that's like a human, that's pretty mind blowing. I remember watching iRobot way back when. I'm like, man, I want to build that. But I went to the computer vision PhD at Georgia Tech. Started working on autonomous vehicles, so self-driving cars and autonomous drones and missiles, things like that. But that was taking too long. Like, it was like a 6 to 8 year degree thing. And I'm like, 6 to 8 years, dang, dude. And again, like, there was definitely a level of impatience, but I definitely didn't want the things limiting my speed to be external factors. I wanted to be my own ceiling, in a sense. And so
that's interesting. I guess I wanted to ask you, Renji, because that's super interesting, because first of all, you just said you broke your parents' heart from not being a doctor, which I think is mind blowing to all of our listeners. But you're following what you wanted to do. So what made you kind of want to what was the love of technology that made you pursue it a little bit more?
Oh yeah. So that's I don't know, man. I'll give you, I guess I'll answer the question in sort of like a short story. Like, my wife is an accountant, and for 12 to 16 hours a week, she's showing me how she has to sort bills. And she's an accountant for a real estate developer, and they have a lot of apartment complexes with tenants that essentially ship or mail them the actual bills for their apartment units. And so she has to one by one sort each unit number, and we're talking hundreds of bills every week. So she spends 12 to 16 hours a week just dragging and dropping PDF files. I'm like, how boring is that? What the heck? I was like, I can code a program to do that for you automatically.
Right.
And so I was just bored one night. So 30 minutes I was just coding. And she's like, dude, don't waste your time. I was like, you're wasting your time. And I was just just like, coding. 30 minutes, built this program that was able to automatically sort all those bills and saved her 12 to 16 hours a week. Unfortunately, she was like watching Netflix with that saved time, but the idea was, it was cool that I was able to automate part of someone's job and essentially bring value to someone's life using technology, and just make it so that they can focus on the creative, more difficult tasks and just let software handle the repetitive, monotonous stuff, right? And so I think that's partly why, even in the Georgia Tech PhD thing, I ultimately ended up quitting that and just sort of selling for the master's and then starting a company, partly because I was like, man, even in this like research facility, we're working on stuff that most of these things that we present to the U.S. military, they just kind of throw money at it and then they kill it, and like no one ever sees it. And so I just wanted to sort of build things with purpose, and you can really use technology. I mean, the different apps and like your iPhone. It's so useful and it makes life a lot faster. I think we're really spoiled as a generation in America today, because at the end of the day, like, technology is extremely valuable. Like, even just us being able to have Zoom in the first place, to be connected. I know it's easy to complain about COVID and Zoom fatigue and all that type of stuff, but this is really mind blowing if we were to really put things in perspective. Go back 100 years and you have none of this.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's super cool to hear that, because, like, my friends, Toby's in New York, and we've had other folks on podcasts in different cities. And it's like, wait, we could still connect with each other in a worldwide pandemic, which is crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's killer, man. I mean, just the fact that you could look at something like that and be like, oh, wait, there's an easier way to do this. I know I'm a subject matter expert at this, and I'm going to go ahead and do it. That's really killer. Just like going into like your company and what the product is, like, you want to kind of just, let our listeners know what what your product is, what your services are, and, how it kind of like impacts the world and, just general environment.
Yeah. So just in one sentence, we're partnered with Facebook to build virtual reality offices. And so especially during COVID, when everyone's working from home, especially engineers and designers who are really highly collaborative teams, Zoom and chat just cannot replace what they used to have in person. And so what Immersed does is it puts you into this virtual reality. Do I have the headsets out there? There's other headsets here, the older generation. I wanted to show you the new Quest 2. But Facebook had built this new, and we were actually working with them behind the scenes this past year before they released it in October, this new headset that's extremely light, extremely cheap, and extremely high quality. And it's pretty mind-blowing. When every time I demo that headset and our product to people, it just blows their mind. By the way, like, $300, buy an Oculus Quest 2 during the holiday season. It will blow your freaking mind how high quality that thing is. And at the end of the day, like, Facebook's just trying to get it into people's homes, which is why they're taking the financial hit. Anyways, so we're partnered with Facebook to build essentially the next generation of Zoom, or whatever it is, right? Like, we're trying to enable people to work together in person, but virtually and remotely, right? So that as people sort of move, or companies kind of move to this hybrid model where some people are in person and some people are remote, you won't be limited by physical distance. And so when you put the headset on, it wirelessly pairs to your MacBook, PC, or Linux computer. It spawns 5 virtual screens. So even if you're working by yourself, you can take the headset and your laptop to the couch, to the porch, I don't know, on the road, camping, on a sailboat, whatever, and you have 5 screens, high resolution, with you at all times. And so even just from a single use case, having a portable work environment where you're not distracted, it's really, especially the environments we put you in. Like, one of the environments is a spaceship in low Earth orbit, and you just, like, you have your screens around you, and like, you just see the Earth slowly rotating, and it's just like this glorious, like, looking environment. It's really mind blowing. And then you have your 5 screens, and you just focus and get your work done. And as soon as you need to collaborate with someone, they can beam into your space. You can share your screens with them. And what's so cool is the screens are way higher quality than I've ever screen shared on Zoom. And I could share 5 screens. With the new MacBook that's coming out, we can do up to 10 screens. I don't know if you need that many screens, but it's possible. And you could also whiteboard with them using your bare hands, which is really, really cool. So it's a pretty mind-blowing experience. And we've raised about $4 million to date. We'll be closing on another round in March. It's going to be, again, another crowdfunding campaign. Because again, like, historically, I'd sort of only raised venture capital money, but then I realized Immersed really is growing. I was like, crap. I'm not going to be able to get my friends and family in so that they could partake in the financial upside. Like, these are the people who had really supported and loved us throughout the years, but I'm just making rich VCs even richer. And so what we did was we opened up a crowdfunding campaign. And the cool thing is, as we've had 1,500 people invest in Immersed. It's been really cool to see the value that they bring to us, right? So they've connected us with people at Google, AWS, Amazon, or AWS is Amazon, Apple, HP, IBM, et cetera. And it's been really cool to partner with the masses in helping bring this work from home solution to everyone. It's been really cool, man.
What would you say to someone that would say to you, I feel like augmented reality is like the next big thing and not virtual reality. I think you hear that a lot, right?
Yep.
Just because the headsets and different things. What would you say to someone?
Yeah. So the reason why we're starting in VR is mainly because of the price point. There are over 20 million Oculus Quest 2 users today. Through the holidays, Facebook is projecting between 40 to 60 million people who have these headsets. But when it comes to augmented reality, like the HoloLens or Magic Leap or whatever, those are like the Magic Leap is $2,300. The HoloLens is $3,500. No one owns it. There are no users on that. So whenever there is a pair of Facebook glasses or Apple glasses that become ubiquitous and everyone has it, the cool thing is the way that we built our software, we can immediately port over to those highly adopted glasses. So for us, we're just sort of waiting for there to be a popular. And so the cool thing is whenever we port our product over to those glasses, you can go to a coffee shop, for example, wear your glasses and not feel isolated. You don't have to have a VR headset on. Right. But the downside is some people are they're going to miss out on those really like cool environments, like being in space or whatever. So I could see different, like when you're at home, you use a VR headset. When you're in a public setting, you use glasses. So we'll just be on pretty much anything that's out there.
That's awesome. How would you say, like, what changed after this whole pandemic? I mean, I'm sure you guys had like this one, plan and business plan and idea and where you guys want to go. And then this hit. Like, how did that change? Was there any changes?
What's so crazy is there's been very little change in regards to the direction. It's been mainly just a crazy increase in traffic. So I mean, I've been pitching the future of remote work for the past 4 years. And 4 years ago, people thought I was nuts. They're like, why are you spending so much time and effort towards building this thing? And I'm like, I'm telling you, like, remote work is going up. But to be real, what's so crazy is a year ago, we ran out of money. This is pretty mind-blowing. We ran out of money last November, and we were a team of 8 people. And I told my team, like, honestly, I felt low. I started fundraising last August, and 4 months later into November, still haven't received the venture capital funds specifically. I'd been pitching these VCs. We had people who were verbally locked in, but they were just taking for freaking ever. And so we ran out of money, and I went to and I was telling these VCs, look, we're out of money. Like, are y'all going to fund us or not? And they're like, oh, it's the holidays. We'll have to push it to, February. I'm like, okay, you're literally killing my company. I'm going to go somewhere else. And so I went to my team. The thing is, especially for VR, fundraising was so difficult because historically VR had actually burned the venture capital world. And back in 2017, 2018, 2019. But before that, 2014, 2016, Oculus got acquired by Facebook for $2 billion. And the VR space was super hot back in 2014, 2015, 2016. Anyways, when it was time for me to fundraise, 3 years later, I went to my team and I was like, yo, dude, like, we ran out of money. Like, you guys can go look for jobs if you want. And it was 8, including me. All 7 of the other people on my team unanimously said, look, dude, we're here and we're not looking for jobs. We'll wait for you to raise the funds and we're going to keep working.
That's awesome.
And man, it brought me to tears. I was like, man, like, why are these guys following? I'm some delusional person like who's like pitching this future of work. And like, honestly, I don't even know if remote work is going to increase. And honestly, back in January of this year, I had actually contemplated shutting the company down because 2 more months later, after I told my team about that, November through January, still haven't received the funds. And so in January, I was like, man, I was talking to my lawyer, how do I shut this thing down? And what was so crazy is 2 months later, like the process of figuring out how to shut things down, I remember thinking like, man, maybe remote work's gonna take another 5 years to really explode the way I think it's going to. And then COVID hit. And then things really blew up. And that's when Facebook had reached out, because Facebook had, when COVID had hit, Facebook started doing a bunch of research, like who are all the work in VR products out there. We have about 40 different competitors, or we did back in March. It's probably like 60 different competitors now. Facebook looked through all of them, and Immersed was the one that they believed had the best user experience, the best onboarding, and the biggest technological moat, spawning 5 screens with no extra hardware. Literally no other product does that. No other products on Mac, PC, Linux. And Immersed had the best experience, which is why they partnered with us. So the main things that had changed since COVID had hit was, number one, now we have a business. Number two, Facebook reached out. Number three, like I remember right when this whole shelter in place thing happened, I literally got maybe 50 or 60 texts just from random friends saying like, oh, now what you're doing makes sense. Like I was like, I've been pitching this guy, I've been pitching this for the past 4 years, and now y'all listening. And so that's why we opened up that crowdfunding campaign with all of our friends and family this past summer. And it was crazy. It was we blew through $1 million of funding within 4 hours. We opened it, $1 million came in 4 hours, and then $2 million in the next couple of days after that. And so we're like, all right, $2 million is more than we need. We just closed it right then and there, and then we were off to the races.
That's super encouraging, because I will tell you, I've been remote worker since 2012. And I can't tell you how often I've told my coworkers, why are you flying into Chicago? I mean, we could do this via a meeting. You could save half a day. I don't have to travel 45 minutes to the office and sit in traffic. And I think I was watching some of your interviews where you were talking about people are sitting in traffic for 1.8 trillion minutes. And it's ridiculous. And there's a lot of snow in Chicago in the winter. I don't know if people know that. So I am so happy you're doing what you're doing, because I feel like it's going to change the way we work. And I mean, I think that's really exciting, especially for folks who are living in it. But like, now you get the environment and the audience, the general population, right? Like, how do you overcome some of the challenges, or what do you see? Because COVID's probably helping them become more aware, but is there anything that you've kind of are looking for in the future to help people adapt to new technology?
Yeah. So the cool thing is, because there's, especially through these holidays, there's going to be about 60 million users that we can attempt to acquire. Like for us, our business becomes cash flow positive once we hit 6,000 paid users, let alone 60 million of them, right? So we have a long way to go just to acquire the people who already have headsets. And by the time we get anywhere near taking a large chunk of that user base, by then Facebook glasses will have come out, and so we get to lean on the shoulders of giants, the tech giants, right? Facebook, Apple, Google, Microsoft, they're all pouring billions of dollars into the future of, or the next generation of computing, which, are going to be glasses. And so for us, we don't want to wait until those glasses come out in order for us to start building, because we'll be too late by then. We need to build in anticipation for that explosion event. And once that happens, we'll be the ones in the front lines with the best technology ready to take advantage of that situation. And so even thinking about, like, an analogy would be back when Uber first started, the iPhone didn't even exist, right? People were using Uber via text, which is mind blowing. Like, how do you hail an Uber via text? And they were like, well, I mean, we know that this thing is coming out, and as soon as it does, we're going to be ready. And same thing with Immersed. As soon as these glasses, and here's the thing, people think glasses are a distant future. It's actually year after next. 2022 is when Facebook glasses and Apple glasses are projected to come out from their internal stuff, right? I mean, there are some like articles here and there that have leaked it, which is why we're allowed to talk about this sort of thing. But this is happening year after next, and people don't realize how close we are. So I mean, you probably agree with me. Like, as soon as Apple announces their glasses, everyone and their mom is going to buy them. Like, and it's going to be a $500 pair of glasses, which pairs to your iPhone, and you get your texts on your eyes. You get your you can have your calls, FaceTime, whatever. It's going to be pretty mind blowing. So I'm really excited for that.
So yeah, thinking about adoption and like just seeing how little kids have iPhones, and like my son knows how to open up my phone now. It's crazy. Like, I feel like adoption to new technology is just going to be the norm. And so it's really inspiring to see you kind of take the charge in something new, and then maybe taking a step back to look at it from a leadership aspect, right? Like, you're starting something brand new, taking a lot of risks, and it's uncharted territory. So you shared your story, which is really, really powerful and inspiring, but I'm sure there's been some challenges along the way.
Oh yeah, 100%.
So can you walk us through that? Maybe like just some of the stories of rejection and your resilience to get through some of those experiences.
Yeah, no, for sure. Man, especially in the early days. So we went through this program called Techstars in Chicago. About 10,000 companies applied worldwide, and only 10 got in. And we were one of the 10. And to be real, I felt like one of the dumbest people in that program, because I was surrounded by Harvard, MIT, Stanford, brilliant founders, some founders who had already previously sold their companies for millions of dollars and now starting their next one. And I was the only, first-time founder, non-Ivy League person. And so I'm definitely the underdog in this program. And I started pitching this idea of Immerse, and everyone's like, what are you talking about, dude? And none of it made sense. So the entire program was rejection, except for once we built the initial prototype. Once we built the initial prototype, things started clicking for some investors. Maybe like 1% of them were like, oh, wow, this actually makes a little bit of sense. And that's where we got our initial checks. What I had noticed throughout the years was the people who had rejected us along the way was actually God working through the situations, meaning like God is sovereign in who ends up working with us and who doesn't. And the cool thing is the people who end up saying no and rejecting us in the early days, turns out they probably wouldn't have been good partners for us to begin with. And the people who said yes are the ones who had the vision to support us throughout the whole way. So we're actually funded partially by a VC firm called Sovereign's Capital, one of the most solid Christian VC firms I've ever met. There may be like 4 or 5 different Christian VC firms I'd met, and Sovereign's Capital is by far one of the most solid. Like they care more about God being glorified in the workplace than they do the return on investment. Obviously, it's ideal if both happens, but at the end of the day, they told me that number one, whenever you need money, just ping us, because at the end of the day, like we support you and your team and what you're building and really the vision. And so for them, they know that they essentially said as soon as their first check gets into the company, like they are here to back us until we die, sort of thing. And so what I will say is, although we got rejected by a lot of these top Sand Hill Road venture capital firms, to be real, the more and more I get exposed to other founders who did get yeses from them, I hear how much they have to deal with all these politics and like these VCs being sharks. I mean, you've seen Shark Tank. Some of these guys are really aggressive. And so, and especially when you get a billionaire to invest in your company, they really are really greedy with their money, and they're willing to, I mean, in a sense, take your life in order to make sure that they get their return on investment. Like they will, what I mean by that is like make you work like a freaking slave. For me, at the end of the day, like I'm a husband first, and Lord willing, someday a father to our kids, and I want to be a family guy, sort of thing. But I don't want, and I don't want to be a slave to my company. Although the past 4 years have been a lot of hard work, and maybe I'm wired a little bit differently, where naturally I don't have to sleep as much, and naturally I can keep my brain on for a little bit longer, which are giftings from God. But that being said, at the end of the day, I'm not going to put my Christianity or my role as a husband / father and even a spiritual leader in our community on hold in order to build this company to appease VCs. And so that being said, God has made, like, he's shut a lot of the right doors, even though these were certain doors that I wanted. He shut them because I know that he's protecting me, right? Romans 8:20 is very clear in regards to all things work together for the good of those who love God and are called according to his purpose, right? So at the end of the day, if I truly believe that God has my best interest in mind because I am his, what am I worried about? Why do I care about rejection?
Right.
It's just a yes or a no, because God knows where he needs me to be. So,
man, that's gold. I feel like anybody listening to this, I mean, people are probably trying to start their own companies or starting their own YouTube channel, right? I mean, it could be anything, but we're probably all going to experience rejection at some point in our lives. But it's knowing who's in control, really, right? That's awesome. I think if there is something to share to like aspiring young leaders, what are some of those lessons that maybe you've learned in your journey that you can impart to them?
Yeah. Well, number one, especially if you're, I don't know how direct I could be about my faith. Am I allowed to be direct about my faith?
Yes,
like, oh yeah. Okay, cool. So for me, I've seen so many advantages to being a Christian in the workplace. What I mean by that is, so what I've noticed is whenever some of my friends who are founders, and honestly smarter founders than me, pitch these top, billionaire VC firms, it's so interesting to see how they kind of shake and are really nervous, and like they almost like bow down to these billionaires. And like for me, I'm like, yo, dude, you're a human just as much as I am. Like, why would I bow down to you? Like, in God's sight, we're literally the same. And so me going into these same meetings, what's interesting is because I look at these billionaires as peers, because honestly, I struggle to see them as more important than me. And not that I'm important. It's just in my sight is like, look, we're all humans. Like, we all suck. Like that's my perspective. At the end of the day, like God is the only one who is worthy of being put on a pedestal. Like, when I walk into a room with a billionaire or whatever, and I'm pitching Immersed, I can talk to them like they're a normal human being, because I truly believe that internally. And so, and that really comes down to reading scripture and being letting it renew my mind, sort of thing, so that my outlook on life, when I look at a billionaire, I see literally the same thing as I'm looking at you guys, or like my sister, or like my wife, or whoever. And so I can have these conversations where it's just very, very comfortable. And from their perspective, they're like, oh wow, this guy's very confident. I'm like, no, I'm not confident. I just believe in like the fact that you're just as much as of a human as I am, and it's interesting. Like in that context, it's extremely advantageous to be a Christian, right? When I say Christian, I mean like not that just put your faith in Jesus and now you'll be like. At the end of the day, like God has shown me that sort of walking the narrow path doesn't have to be necessarily at the expense of certain things working out the way that you hope would be. At the end of the day, like, God will still carve that path if it's His will. Here's another example. I've been in multiple meetings where people notice, they're like, "Wait, you don't use any profanity? Are you a Christian?" I'm like, "Yeah, why?" They're like, "Oh," I was like, "If you weren't a Christian, you're probably just like 40 years old." I'm like, well, or something. I'm like, "No, I'm not 40. I'm 29." Like, I'm a kid. Like, it's interesting because I don't curse, which, again, I'm not saying you can't curse. I'm just saying that I don't. Because I know where I stand in my convictions, and I talk a certain way. People, they give me a certain level of respect. Not that I need the respect, but it lets them take me more seriously when I'm in these meetings, pitching them and all that type of stuff. So that being said, like, especially if you're a Christian entrepreneur type person, don't be shy to be straightforward about your faith. This is what's interesting. I went through a Christian accelerator, and I'm using quotes this case very intentionally. Christian accelerator program when I went through Cincinnati. It wasn't very Christian when I got there. It was kind of like a way to try to add like a Christian label on something. It wasn't very solid. Mm-hmm. And I remember them telling me, like, "Whoa, you need to like put a lid on all this like Christian stuff because you're scaring people away." And I'm like, "What do you mean? Just because I'm talking about God as if I actually have a relationship with Him? Like, what do you mean?" And they're like, "Oh, you might scare away VCs who don't believe in God, blah blah." And I'm like, "All right, so this is a Christian VC firm." And then I went through, and it was kind of like a Christian accelerator program. It was like a no-name program. Then I went through Techstars, which is one of the world's top accelerator programs by Greg. Like, I don't know how I got into that program. God gave them some sort of delusion to bring me into the program. But when I got there, the managing director, he's a hardcore atheist. I mean, he's like, in his mind, he's like, "I know there is no God." And it's like, but he came to me and said, "Oh, hey, Renji, by the way, whenever you pitch VCs, whenever you hire, whenever you're building relationships with people, be very direct about your faith." I was like, "What? Why is this guy, who's a hardcore atheist, telling me to be direct about it?" And he was saying it's because people, if they're going to want to work with you, they need to know who you really are. I'm like, I 100%, I agree with that. And it was so odd to see that the Christian Accelerator program that had no title, no platform, anything, was telling me to shut up about my faith. But then the top program in the world with this hardcore atheist telling me to be very straightforward about my faith. And it was just so interesting to see how like even these top programs, they really, really push you just being authentic. So if you're a young Christian entrepreneur, be very open and honest about your faith. I'm not saying to stand on a soapbox and like tell people they're going to hell. That's not what I'm saying. Like, what I'm saying is be authentic and be real, and don't be afraid to share your faith, because there are actually so many advantages just to be open and honest with people.
Yeah, we hide behind things when we don't have that solid, genuine relationship with Jesus Christ, and like He's actually real to us and we have that connection with Him. And yeah, I see how that can translate into how we work, right? And in our professional lives, it really has to be a fluid. It can't be compartmentalized aspects of our lives, right?
Because people notice that.
That's really great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. People notice that. And like when they notice you're kind of covering things up, they struggle to like trust you in business relationships, because they're like, you're not, like, I see on social media, you might like say you're Christian, or I might see you like at a church event, but then when I like actually spend my 9 to 5 with you, you never talk about that stuff. So like, who are you really? Unbelievers and like people who are not Christians, like they're not stupid. Like, they see this stuff. So I don't know why people like kind of put it on the back burner. If it's not real for them, okay, that's one thing. But if it is real for them and then they hide it, that's where it's like, I mean, either you're hot or you're cold. You just don't be lukewarm, man.
Yeah, we can't be lukewarm. No, I mean, that's really great advice for anybody even listening to venture out and be a leader and take risks and things like that, and put yourself out there, because we're putting ourselves outside of the four walls of our church, right? Like, and we're actually in front of people who may not have experienced what God can do. And obviously your story exhibits that. This is so encouraging, because it's not just that you're a leader and you're working with Facebook and all these kind of things. It's because you're taking the risks and giving God the glory. And I think that's been kind of the consensus of what some of these guests that we've had on this podcast over the past couple months have been. It's been, they're all starting something different, but in the end, it's always like giving glory to God, and the story and the come up, right, is like, wow, I can see the hand of God in the story, right? Yeah, which is awesome.
Well, here's the thing, though. It's like it's almost the common thread I see between people who are successful and give God the glory is they can't deny what God has done because it's very real. Meaning, I can't sit here and flex and pretend like, oh yeah, man, I did all these things on my, dude, if it were up to Renji, Immersed would have failed right now. I'm not saying that God made COVID happen for Immersed to be successful, but what God has shown me is that if Immersed is to be successful, it's going to be because God's going to make it successful. If it's going to fail, it's because Renji took it into his own hands, sort of thing. And I did, in a sense, drive it into the ground last November. And God used something as difficult as COVID, and sort of the silver lining for the company was that we figured out a way to make this or build a product that's valuable for people during a difficult time like this. But that being said, multiple times when things had seemed impossible, like even when I applied to Techstars, it was like a shot in the dark. And you know, again, 10 out of 10, that's 0.1% chance of getting into the Techstars program. God made a way for me to get into that program. I clearly, like when I heard about, I didn't even go through the normal process that these other founders went through. It turns out the managing director was just like, I need Renji in my program. So I like leaped the entire interview process. By the way, I wonder if Techstars people are going to hear about this, but I didn't go through the normal process. The other 9 founders in the program told me about the process they went through. I was like, yeah, I didn't go through that at all. If I went through that process, I would have been hardcore rejected. I had a 20-minute conversation with the managing director of Techstars, and he's like, dude, for some reason, I know I need you in my program. And again, that's why I keep saying, like, God gave this guy some sort of delusion that, and back then, I didn't know what I was doing at all. Not that I know what I'm doing completely today. I know a little bit more than I did back then, but back then I definitely didn't know what I was doing. And it was very clear that, yeah, God had given this guy some sort of inkling or conviction or something that said, hey, put Renji in that program because I'm going to be doing something with the company that he's building. And so for me, the reason why God gets the glory is because I know that I couldn't have done that. Like I think it's John Piper who says, we can't even breathe without God, let alone do all these things. So who are we to take glory from God in regards to the success of things or when things go well? Like, yes, there was time and effort and grind, but at the end of the day, God calls me to just be faithful in the little things, and he'll handle the big things. And ultimately, if this is to be successful, if it brings God glory for real, and if it's in my best interest, he'll make it happen. Otherwise, he will shut it down, because that's the best thing for Renji, and I'm okay with that.
That's awesome, man. Kind of walk us through like this whole Forbes thing, man. I have some experience in it because I used to work for Daniel George. So when he was Forbes 30 under 30, I remember doing all this stuff for, to just kind of like put our company out there and all that stuff. So kind of like walk through like what's the steps for this award, and like what's next for you, all that good stuff.
Yeah. So back when, I didn't even know that I was nominated until I got an email from Forbes. So it turns out that I guess Forbes had reached out to some alum and were asking them, hey, like, who do you recommend? And so I know like 3 or 4 people, including Daniel, who had gotten into, Daniel wasn't one of the people who nominated me, but 2 or 3 of my other friends, I found out afterward, had nominated me for Forbes. And they nominated me specifically for consumer tech. So in my head, I'm like, all right, it's consumer tech. It's kind of open water sort of thing, where it's like anyone who's building, like, usually in the sports category, it's usually like professional sports athletes that make that. In the music category, it's usually professional music people. In the consumer tech world, I mean, dude, there are millions of tech startups, and I'm like, the chances of me getting it, I was like, I had such low expectations, so I didn't really think I'd get it to begin with. But that being said, like, when I heard that, sorry, I'm getting a message. When I had heard that they were asking me for more information, I was like, oh, wow, this looks like this is, something's coming of this. And then on top of that, I went through all the previous year's consumer tech categories or Forbes 30 under 30 lists, and there weren't any other previous VR founders. So I was like, dang, the chances of me getting the thing is actually very, very slim, because VR isn't an everyday consumer device yet. Although Facebook's making waves, and because of COVID, like, they're like 5xing their profits on the VR side, which is really cool. Like, I guess it's coming up a little bit. And then once here's a funny story. That morning, I saw the article get posted, and I looked through it, and it turns out, so I started swiping. I went through consumer tech. I was like, oh, did I make it? And I got to the end of the list, and I didn't see myself. I was like, oh, my heart dropped. I was like, what happened? I thought, I could have sworn I had it. Like, I had a 6% chance I'd get it. And it turns out they were having technical difficulties because it didn't upload all the names. And so one of my friends messaged me saying, congrats, bro. And I was like, dude, I didn't make it. He's like, what are you talking about? And he sent me the link. I was like, oh, crap, I made it. Like, I blew my mind. So, like, it was just a roller coaster of emotions that morning.
And what's technology these days, right?
I know, right? Yeah, dude, it's a website, man. Come on, how hard could that be? And so, like, that morning, it was interesting. They had technical difficulties that morning. Half the description descriptions weren't even up there. Half the stats and stuff. Some people's pictures weren't even up there. It was pretty crazy. And then about an hour of it being released, they then uploaded and fixed everything. And so I guess I got the version of the website that didn't have my name on it. And so my heart dropped. I was like, oh man, forget this. And I went back to sleep because it was like 6 a.m. at the time. And then like 6:05, I got a message from my friend saying, oh dude, you made it. And so it was just really cool, man. That morning, my team and I mean, we made a social media post, and we kind of pushed it out there and kind of like just sort of shared it with family and friends. And the post went pretty viral. And then from there, had a lot of really cool big names reach out. And that's been really exciting. Really cool to see what the results will be. So, I mean, as far as like what things look like from here, I mean, I think that, so I had a call from Oculus that day, the Facebook department that acquired Oculus, and they didn't like thank me because, you know, the pride thing, but they were like, oh, this is great for VR because, you know, puts us on the map in the consumer tech space. I was like, you could just say thank you, you know, like, you know. But it was cool that they validated the fact that like this is an important milestone for VR in general. And to be real, I had really I've been trying my best in the past 4 years to really put my team on the map in regards to us, you know, building a very like viable company. And honestly, landing Forbes is super helpful as we continue to fundraise in the next couple of months, like another public crowdfunding campaign. This will really help because it helps validate that like what we're doing is actually meaningful. This is not some random cool little like, or not even cool, like random dumb little like tech project. We have tens of thousands of people every month who work in VR, many of which who spend 40 to 50 hours every week with a headset on their face. It's pretty mind blowing to think that, but if you try the new headset, it'll blow your mind how comfortable it is. And yes, not 8 hours a day straight up, but like 2 hours at a time, just like how often you sit in front of your computer screens, you work for 2 hours, leave, come back, sort of thing. And people do the same thing with their headsets because it's more comfortable, you have bigger screens, it's more of a chill environment, and they get more work done, which is really cool. And they have better collaboration. So we're really cool to see what sort of incoming opportunities we get from all the different podcasts that we're doing. What else? Yeah, this fundraiser is going to be really important. And we're excited for that Forbes Summit next year. So we'll see what happens, but I'm really excited for what the future looks like.
Oh, awesome. We're excited for you, man. And like,
yeah,
honestly, thanks. I think people in our community, sometimes, you know, there's the pride thing where people see somebody else being successful and then they don't encourage that person. Like, we don't know you, Renji. We haven't met you until like 40 minutes ago, but it's really cool to see what you're doing. I kind of think about like, you know, how there's been pictures of Kamala Harris and then there's a little shadow. Like, I want somebody to graphic me as a shadow and then Renji is walking down the street. You know what I mean? Because like, we look to you and we're like, wow, you can do it in our community. And I think the immigrant story of just your parents and how you shared that, a lot of us can resonate with that. And if we ever go back to the motherland, for those of us who have gone to see what our parents have come from,
I know
it's inspiring, man.
Yeah, no, for sure. And here's the thing, like, I'm also human and so are you. And like, I don't believe, like I keep telling my team that, you know, people sometimes, like people ask us all the time, like, you're competing against Facebook. Like Facebook, although they're partnering with you, don't be dumb and think that they're not creating a copy of you as well. Now, I'm 100% aware of that. Facebook, Apple, Google, Microsoft, all of them are creating a version of Immersed. I'm 100% aware of that. And I tell my team, like, realize though, like we have 13 founder mentality people at this company, whereas we're competing against like maybe 100 9 to 5 employees. And I would bet on my team every day. And so that being said, like, I don't want us to lose, from a lack of effort, if that makes sense. I'm like, yes, maybe they have more resources than us, but I don't want them to beat us because we just didn't grind hard enough, sort of thing, right? So that being said, like, I think that it really, honestly, like, our team does put a lot of time and effort into this stuff. They do work super long hours, and like, they are extremely good at what they do, mainly because they love their job. So because Immersed is a really mind-blowing concept, and like, because all the people on our team loved what they were doing before they came here, except for they were in a context like a bigger corporation or maybe a failed startup, whatever. I then, you know, poached them to come to my company, and it's been really cool to see how people are grinding so hard at this company because they love what they do. Like, they don't feel like they're working. It feels like a legit hobby. And it's fun. We come to work every day and we realize, like, our team was talking about yesterday, how we need to like not let life pass us by without us realizing that these are the good old days. And we should really like live in that and enjoy that. And so when it comes to people like wanting to have accomplishments in life, I think at the end of the day, it kind of depends on where their heart is behind that, right? And so what I'm saying is, for us, our team really wants to build a meaningful company that can transform the way that our world works. And on top of that, to be real, if Immersed does get acquired, that will be life-changing money for us and our families. But at the end of the day, we want to use those funds to go build the next thing, or build to like pour into ministries and things like that. And so, and to be real, like, we are still also human. And so because of that, so are you and everyone listening. And at the end of the day, like, we don't have anything that's so crazy special. We just wanted to apply ourselves in the here and now as opposed to pushing it off, sort of thing. So that being said, I think anyone listening could do pretty much the same thing as long as they sort of surround themselves. And for me, I realized, because I'm not as beastly as some other people, I've had to surround myself with these people to learn from them, to ask them for resources. And that was I think that was one of the most mind-blowing things I learned, is when you just ask people for help, they're just willing to help. And sometimes you get rejected here and there because some people aren't so nice, and that's fine. But when you generally ask people for help from a humble perspective, oftentimes they do want to help. And so maybe part of it is because they want to sound like a know-it-all and seem cool, whatever, as long as you're getting value out of it.
Right.
And that being said, man, like, I think people who are listening, like, be encouraged, because this doesn't have to be like, oh, Renji's doing all these cool things. Like, you could do cool things too if you want to. And then if you don't want to, if you want to have like a kind of chill lifestyle, that's cool too. So it just really comes down to what God's calling you to do and whatever you want to do, right? So this is fun for me, and whatever you're doing is probably fun for you. So it doesn't really matter who gets what accolades.
I think those are great leadership skills as well, and what you're employing to your people in your company, and creating the environment to encourage them to have that mentality to not just play hard, but work hard, and also, go after something bigger for a greater purpose. I was talking to my wife the other day. She's an occupational therapist, and we were, I just showed her all your videos, and I was just like, look at this. And she's like, wow, this could really shape how we do therapy, how we can actually help people medically, right? And we think about all these different scenarios. It's not just cool technology, it's something that can really change the world. And I think that's why it's really inspiring as well. It's not just some kind of new goggles or glasses or tech stuff. It's really something that can enhance people's lives. And I think that's super exciting. So, thinking about next steps for you, what's ahead of you, and what are some things that I guess use cases, or even just the future of your company? Where do you see it headed?
Yeah. So, man, I'm so excited for us to finish up this next wave of hiring. So we're 13 people now. So we'll be raising another public crowdfunding round, kind of like in February, March-ish timeframe. And then right after that, we're likely going to hire maybe 10-ish more people. And we're trying to keep it as small as possible, just so, keep our burn low, keep the communication rapid, all that type of stuff, and keep moving quick and fast, or kind of small and fast, whatever. And I'm just really excited to really release this sort of focus or hyper focus mode version of our product. I'm really excited about. So just by virtue of being in a distraction-free private workspace sort of thing with multiple screens, people already see productivity increases. But we're going to be releasing this thing called hyper focus mode, which is going to be freaking mind blowing, where you legit would be able to get probably like 3x as much work done. Like, you versus 3 people doing the same thing that you're doing, like, you're just going to be able to get just as much work done. And so we do leverage a lot of deep work methodologies, Pomodoro methodologies, as well as, because we control your entire work environment, everything you see, we manipulate, what you hear, what you see, what you focus on, all those types of things. We can get people into sort of this flow state that the real world just can't provide, and no app on a 2-dimensional screen can provide. And so we're really excited to build that, because this is where we really see a pretty massive explosion event in regards to companies giving employees superhuman abilities, right? And so, like, if I gave this analogy, I think yesterday or the day before, where if Uber and Lyft are competing, which they are, and I think Lyft is like a third or a fourth of the size of Uber. If Lyft had immersed hyper-focus mode for all their employees, and they're outperforming Uber, in order for Uber to continue to compete and not lose to Lyft, even though Lyft has a third or the fourth of the size of the company, they would also have to adopt something like Immersed too, right? And so that's something that, I've already tried a crappy, ugly prototype version of hyperfocus mode, and it is freaking mind blowing. And you're like, wait, how is that possible? I kind of try to keep most of the feature set close to the vest until we release it, so that once we do release it, then competitors can copy. People are always going to copy us. So many people have already they're already, like I said, 40 to 60 different competitors who are copying us. And I'm cool with the fact that they're copying us, because at the end of the day, like, may the best product win. I'm just glad that they don't have their own ideas. And so that's why I'm trying to just like kind of keep some of the stuff close to the vest. And so even some of this, it was funny. We released this feature that enabled people to actually finally see their hands and keyboard in VR, enabling them to actually type in VR. And a lot of our competitors' products, you see a screen. And so we're the only multi-screen product. You see your screen, just sort of a focus mode sort of product, but you can't see your hands. So you have to blind type in VR. We're the first one to actually bring hands and keyboards into VR, so people don't have to blind type anymore, which is really mind blowing. And then I remember a very prominent VR publication tagged us saying, Immersed VR is virtual desktop and big screen. Some of our competitors are popular competitors. Are they allowed to do they have to tag you before they publish their copies of their product or something? And like, it was just funny because the founders of these companies did respond, and they're like, hey, we're all trying to figure this out.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was funny. And so like, I was like, hey, y'all can do whatever you want. Like, may the best product win. I love, and there are aspects of their products that I really love. So that being, and I think that all of us are learning from each other's data points, and like, we're all trying to create just the best product for our users. So that being said, man, like, I think that as we release this hyper focus mode product, really just in the next probably 6 months, it's gonna be freaking mind blowing to see that, some of your coworkers that you work with, if they use Immersed and use hyper focus mode, and they're just trucking through work, like literally just like at a rate that you've just never seen before. You ever seen that movie Limitless, where that guy takes that pill and he's limitless or whatever? Like we are really hoping that this will be, and not even hoping, like, I know that even me working in that prototype and using that prototype and already trucking through work, obviously our team's first going to use it so that we can continue just killing our competitors at the rate at which we're deploying. But man, this is going to be a mind-blowing year. And then especially as Facebook and Apple come out with their glasses year after next, so like in 14 months or whatever, or probably a year and a half from now, so maybe like 18 months. That's going to be a crazy explosion event, and we're ready for it. So we're really excited about that. And so that being said, like, as we get our friends and family and their money into this round in February, March, or whatever, we're really excited to honestly, like, I guess let me take a step back. I remember when I first started building this company, and God had given me a conviction, or sort of like almost like an inkling that this is going to be a platform that he's going to use to pour capital into the church. And I was like, oh, cool. Does that mean Renji's going to have a big exit, and then he gets to do whatever with the funds or whatever, pour into different ministries and startups and things like that. And what was cool was when we had opened up this public crowdfunding campaign this past summer, thousands of believers that I met around the US, I saw their names on the list of investors. Like, wow, that is really cool. Like, when Immerse exits, God's going to be pouring capital into all of these people's pockets. So it's not up to Renji to fund the church. It'll be believers all around the US doing that. And so as Immerse continues to grow, and even this next round, and as we continue to grow, man, I'm really excited to see what, as we blow away people with the product that we're building, as I honestly, like, we've already been given acquisition offers. And obviously I'm having to say no, because I think we can go a lot bigger. And I do want these people to have a pretty awesome return. If I just hold on a little bit longer, we can like 10x, 20x, whatever. That being said, like, I'm really excited to see how God uses the funds that we make from the exit of this company to pour back into the church, man. So I'm really excited about that.
Man, it's so awesome to hear. And at the end of the day, God's going to get the glory, and people are going to know him through this. And it's just, it's so cool to see. And obviously in the short term, you can impact people's lives while they're here on earth, right? Renji, thank you so much for sharing your story, and we are going to continue to follow along, man. And it's awesome to see what you're doing in our community and for the world. And we just can't wait to see all that you're going to do in the future. So we appreciate you jumping on. We won't keep you on forever. Is there anything else, I guess, that the community that you want them to know, and how can we help you in the future?
Yeah. I guess one other thing I kind of left off that I think is gonna be pretty crazy is, so we'll be working with some sort of cloud compute companies. You probably know the names of a bunch of different ones. And we're gonna be essentially building a future where whenever those glasses come out, whether it be Microsoft, I know Samsung and even Panasonic are working on some glasses too, and even Bose, which is pretty mind-blowing. When they come out with their AR glasses year after next, and there's going to be actual 5G technology on those glasses, you're actually going to be able to pull up your computer with just the glasses streaming from the cloud, which is pretty cool. So we're going to be, and so you're not going to need a laptop. You're not going to, I mean, you'll probably still keep your iPhone just because, that's your phone. But when it comes to actually having screens and your keyboard, all that type of stuff with hand tracking, I mean, you're legit just not going to need a MacBook anymore because you're streaming a MacBook from the cloud, the cloud. And so, and especially as Elon Musk works on Starlink and gives global internet access to everyone, even if you're in a boat in the middle of the ocean, you're still gonna have internet access. And if you just, as long as you have those glasses and you download Immersed, you're gonna have access to a computer that you'll be able to use and not have to like purchase a MacBook or whatever. And here's the thing: in order for Apple and Microsoft to stay relevant, they're gonna have to really work on that as well, because at some point this hardware is gonna go away. And so, in regards to how people can follow along and help out and all that type of stuff, I mean, they can follow us on Twitter, Instagram. Like we post a lot of this stuff all the time. As far as like parting thoughts, I think one of the biggest lessons I learned along the way is two things. Like, number one, I guess short story real quick. I remember graduating from that master's program because I quit the PhD. I settled for the master's. I remember the people that I graduated with. Most of the people were pretty like smart, but like kind of know-it-all type people. And then when I went through Techstars and there was, Harvard, MIT, Stanford people, I realized this was like a next level of intelligence. Like they were so smart to the point where they realized they didn't know everything. And so what I realized was, I was like, man, if these Georgia Tech people came into this program, they would see like a whole other level of intelligence where they realize they shouldn't be know-it-alls because they don't know everything. And the reason why these Harvard, MIT, Stanford, brilliant people build innovative and mind-blowing things is because they soak in information. They surround themselves with brilliant people, and then they just soak it in and they synthesize the data and then pick the path that they see fit. That's the best path. And so those two things, like number one, stay humble and realize you don't know everything. And so be okay with taking in a million data points and then sorting through all the data and picking the path you think is best. But number one, the only way to do that is if you actually taken the data to begin with. And then number two, the data comes from surrounding yourself with awesome people. So that being said, like I think it's so important to surround yourself with encouraging people. Man, during this journey of building this startup, it's been one of the most, like you probably have heard this from like Elon Musk say this like a million times, Steve Jobs, like being a CEO is one of the most lonely jobs in the world. Even if you have a co-founder, being a CEO is different because at the end, I think it was like Lecrae that says like the first one to lead is the first one to make big mistakes. And it's like at the end of the day, like people criticize you all the time because you're the one making the mistakes. I'm like, man, if you were here, you'd be making mistakes too. And so like, I'm like, at least I'm doing something, right? And so I just want people to be encouraged that like, dude, don't be afraid to take leaps and take bold steps and surround yourself with encouraging people because that makes a night and a day of a difference, right? Like ultimately the people that I surround myself with and my wife, man, she's been so encouraged this entire process. I remember back in January when I was trying to shut down Immersed and I was crying. I went to her. I was just like, dude, I'm sorry for wasting the past 4 years of your time. Like just, dragging you around the US, trying to build this company. And as a reflex, she sent me this Google Doc link immediately on the spot that was titled 50 Reasons Why Immersed Was Not a Waste of Time, bro. And I just lost it, bro. I just started weeping, bro. Like my wife has been so supportive. She sees the good in what God is doing in the startup. Even if things are to fail, realize that it's not a waste. Like you learned a ton through the process. God has helped you build relationships along the way. All the things that you experienced are purposeful and are necessary. And so don't look at the past as sort of a waste of time. There's a reason why God has put you on the path that you're on. And so that being said, man, surround yourself with encouraging people, listen to them, take the data, and then make the decision. And so those are my parting thoughts, man.
Awesome, man. What a way to end off. I mean, if you're listening to this and you have an idea and you're thinking about it, or you're maybe at the point of giving up, don't. I mean, let's plus rewind, listen to this again, because I think this is so encouraging. And it's not just the fact that you're a member of our community or we're all a bunch of brown people on a podcast. It's the fact that, you're giving glory to God and you get to see him through the journey, and none of this is a waste. We're all here for a purpose. And Renji, we are so excited for you, man. We're proud of you. We're super encouraged, and we're just going to continue to support you and be your cheerleaders, man, because just continue to do that. So thank you for being on, man. We appreciate
thanks for having me. Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Thanks, man.
Awesome.
Appreciate it.
We'll see you guys.
Thanks for listening to the Restoring Our Cities podcast. We really hope you enjoyed that episode with Renji Bijoy. Please check them out at immersedvr.com and follow them on social media as well. They are doing some really exciting work. So thank you so much to Renji and his team, and we encourage them to keep going. And it's so exciting to see what they're doing and impacting our community. And so for all of our listeners out there, we appreciate you listening. We really have heard some great feedback on our leadership series. So please continue to listen and subscribe. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. You can watch the video version of the episode on YouTube as well. And you can find all of our social media handles on our website at restoringourcity.org. Thanks again for listening.